Hey, this is the one-man gold mine, the one-man enterprise of professional wrestling and all entertainment, Flynn Hendricks. And you better believe when I'm looking for a good podcast to listen to, I go to my own. I go to the I Know You Hear Me podcast hosted by me, Flynn Hendricks. That is such a fresh perspective for how you should look at life, too. I love that. And then when I'm feeling spooky, I go to my other podcast, Tales from the Haunt, where I want my head shoved inside a 15-pound silicone mask. More. I want to have a bucket of sweat coming off me at the end of the night than just Jeff.
Dogs don't lay eggs, Flynn.
I hate you so much.
Talk to other scare actors about what it takes to get into the world of scare acting. So if you're curious about how people became professional wrestlers, actors, prioritized their mental health, became entrepreneurs, avoided burnout, or got into scare acting, you need to go check out I Know You Hear Me and Tales from the Haunt, available on all podcasting platforms. And I know you hear me.
Welcome, Tommy Angel, to the show. This is Rick Del Santo, and I'm very happy to have you here. How's it going?
Hey, Rick. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Talking to somebody that I grew up watching on television. I want to know how you. One of my first questions I always ask everybody is because it's everybody has a different story about how they got into professional wrestling. I'm always interested. How did you discover and get interested in professional wrestling, whether it be a kid or whatnot?
The first time I saw wrestling on TV, I think it was 15, almost 16. I just started lifting weights, and I saw this cat on television wrestling Hulk Hogan when he had his chest hair shaved like a tornado or hurricane or whatever.
I remember that.
But, dude, that guy's crazy. What is he doing? And I started lifting. That's the time when Arnold Schwarzenegger was really big and Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk. And I just wanted to get big. That Christmas, my parents asked me, what do you want? I said, I want a set of weights or I want a guitar. And I got weights. So that's kind of the trajectory of my life was based off that Christmas, I think. So I went in the military right out of high school. I was 17. I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 82nd Airborne, paratroopers, and you're in tip-top shape. And I met a couple of guys that lived in my barracks that were huge. I'm like, dude, I've been working out for a couple of years. I can't even get that mass. And they just standoffish for a while, and they finally let me in there in a circle and told me where they were training and basically told me we're taking steroids, but you can't tell anybody. So I went my weight point from about 200 to about 260.
Wow.
And I could barely fit into parachutes, and they put me on the Weight Watchers thing. But they didn't call it that back then, but my body mass index was like 4%, but I was height weight. I was just too big. So they'd send me to the one chow hall to eat salads and all this stuff. And I just walked to the next chow hall and eat pizza and everything else. I just, much as I could eat, I'd grow. And we were watching wrestling on the weekends. I was like, that would be the coolest job ever. I want to do that. And it was after 4 years that I committed to, they always try to get you re-enlist. And I thought, well, my options are I can go to warrant officer school and be a helicopter pilot, or I could be a professional wrestler. They got chicks. Looks like they got lots of money. I want to do that. And my dad's a career military man at that time. He was a colonel in the Marine Corps. And he said, you should re-enlist. When you retire, you'll be probably 42 years old and you can get another job. You'll be double dipping. No, Dad, I got it all figured out. And so it took me about 9 months, but me and a friend of mine were working out in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which Fort Bragg is. And a couple guys, we'd always go down to Cumberland County Arena and harass them when the NWA comes out. We want to be in their business, brother, Eddie. We're huge. And Don Cornell and everybody just kept blowing us off. And finally, when we were there so often, Don Cornell goes, hey, I can tell you guys are serious. I'll tell you, there's a new school going to open up in Mooresville, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. And it's for the NWA. I'll give you the guy's name. So we found out when the tryout was. We drove from Fayetteville to Mooresville, and Nelson Royal and Gene Anderson were getting ready to launch that school. A $200 tryout, non-refundable. And Nelson has a Western store. He's got on his property. He's got a barn. They used to do rodeos there, but it's very hilly. And we did all kinds of, it was like reality TV. You know, we're running up down the hill. Italian Stallion was there. He was there just to help him with us. But, you know, like put Stallion on your back and run up a hill as far as you can go before you died. And then it'd wear you out doing all these drills. And then you get in the ring. Out of all the guys, I'm pretty sure I was in the best shape just because of military and all that weightlifting I did. And he kept trying to stretch me, and I wouldn't let him stretch me. And I could tell he's getting pissed off. And Nelson and Gene made us go outside and came back in. He said, all right. He pointed all the guys that were into the school. It was like $3,200. And I was one of 8 or 9 guys. And the whole purpose was Crockett went to Nelson and Gene, said we need to get a new level of talent for television. Our programming's awful. We do focus groups, and fans are tired of seeing guys just come out. They know as soon as they come in the ring, they get squashed. So They trained us for 4 months how to work, you know, the psychology of the business. And we were obviously very green the first time we went on television, but over time, it took about a year, but we built up a lot of trust with the boys, and you know, they knew that we could work, and they'd give us little opportunities here and there. And as we grew, those opportunities became bigger. And then eventually some of the house shows we did back in 87, they were putting us over just in local house shows, just give us some credibility, so we went on TV. So for me, I was 23, 24 years old. I'm thinking, man, I told my family, I'll be on TV in about 4 months. They're like, yeah, whatever. And the Army's like, yeah, you'll be calling us. You'll be wanting to come back in the re-enlist. I'm like, no. So, but Nelson and Gene were fabulous. You know, Nelson was a 9-time junior heavyweight champion at the time.
Yeah.
Gene was with the Wrecking Crew, and he's a heel, so we had a perspective of a babyface and a heel, teaching us the psychology of the business, how it worked. And it was amazing. It would take us to shows when Nelson would work, and he'd just tell us to sit in the audience and watch and observe. And on the way back, he just quiz us. What did you learn? What did you see? You know, why this guy did that and all this stuff. So it was just super fun. And I ended up moving from Fayetteville to Mooresville, live on Nelson's ranch in a trailer, and we worked out all the time. And that was probably the most beneficial. And then the next class started coming in the next class. So he'd allow us to work out with these guys, and it just reinforced what we knew. And it was just a huge passion, man. I lived and breathed it for 8 years.
Wow. That's it? You were only in the business for 8 years?
Yep.
Wow. Why does it seem like it was so much longer to me?
My hairline was going as fast as my 15 minutes of fame.
I saw that you had your very first match at the Techwood Studios against Baron von Raschke.
Yep. Yeah, when they brought him out, I thought to myself, you're kidding me. I got to wrestle Elmer Fudd. So I was cocky 24-year-old kid, just all gassed up. I'm like, and I got to go out there and make this guy look good. But Nelson told us the purpose of the business and our role is to go out there and make these guys look like champions no matter what we thought. And, you know, so I went out there and did my best. He was already at that point. He's a wonderful young man. And, you know, a couple times when you're running the ropes, you're doing tackles and stuff, I could tell he almost came off his feet. So I'm trying to be gentle at the same time, but make it look like he's beating me up. Then the second match that same day was the Rock and Roll Express. That was more fun. A little more fast-paced and been down.
This is probably a weird question, but did you know it was work right away? Because I hear stories about guys training and then they don't find out maybe until they're in the locker room.
They kayfabed us for 3.5 months because we're going, all right, when are they going to let us know? So we'd ask Nelson, all right, come on now, you know, it's real, son. And Gene would get in there and put this move called the sugar on whoever questioned it, and that hurt more than anything. It's like, I'm not asking you, asking. Ooh. But right before we were, about 2 weeks before we went on our first television taping that you mentioned, you said, all right, here's how the business works, boys. We taught you the fundamentals. But understand it's the greatest thing I think is lost to me when you watch the business today is when you sit in an audience, you can see the good versus evil, the emotions go up and down. Mm-hmm. And that's how these guys from that era were technicians as far as how to draw the people into the story, calm them down. You know, you get a baby face could come back, the crowd goes up and the heel stops them. And you can actually see and feel that energy, and it's powerful.
Right.
But when you're doing TV at Techwood Drive, it's, you know, you got about 30, 40 people, but it's fast paced and it was all pipe and drape, which is interesting to me because we're sitting literally on the side of a curtain and you can hear the guys, you know, almost breathing. Sometimes, a couple times, the guys went out the side of the ring. They weren't supposed to go out. through the chairs, and the curtain will move around. And you can almost see the guys sitting back there on their chairs. Ooh.
What was my next question? Jeez. I'll think about it. Well, I mean, I interviewed Mario Mancini before. I'm sure you remember him.
Yep.
Who spent time in WWF. He was saying he didn't find out that the business was a work until he was literally in the locker room that day, and he had to wrestle David Schultz. Which I thought was really
because
fun.
I mean, it was serious business to protect the business back then, and
yeah,
I found myself in a little bit of trouble from dating a girl who knew a couple of boys in the business, and me being a young guy trying to impress her was saying things that probably shouldn't have, and I was warned that this is, you want to be in this business, you keep your mouth shut, kid.
Yeah. So, what else did you? I'm trying to think. So you started working some house shows and stuff like that around that area.
Yeah, it was back when NWA. It was '86 when I got in there. It was kind of like their heyday. It sounds cliche, but it truly was at the peak of its business. We hit it at the perfect time. Television was hot. They were selling out every house they went to. Every television taping was full. But we went to, I think, the first time they told me I was having a house match. We were doing TV in Atlanta, and that night we had to be in Norfolk. I said, "Can you guys be in Norfolk tonight?" And not even doing the mileage in our head. I'm like, yes, I'll be there. Okay, the show's at 7, and you're going over Angel. You're the first match with, I remember who it was. There's another guy that was mid card, like a Rocky King.
Yeah.
Said you're going over. I'm like, really? And they're like, relax, kid. It's a work. I'm like, I know. I was just excited. We looked at the map. Right? Like, we have to leave Atlanta right now and drive our balls off to get up there because we'll make it, like 30 minutes before the show starts. Because all them guys were catching flights, but I didn't care. I was like, let's go. And they're like, okay, the next day we're going to be in Cleveland. Can you guys make that shot? We're like, okay. So we drive all the way back to where we lived and then back up to Cleveland. But it was at that age and that time, it was so exciting. We didn't care.
What was it like working with Rocky King?
He's a fabulous worker, just fun, and everybody loved him. All the boys, top guys, especially. He was a good hand, is what they call you.
Yeah,
and but he was beloved.
Yeah. One of the things is that I want to ask you about Arn Anderson. He's mentioned you on his podcast recently, or somewhat recently, and I know that when him and Tully went to WWF, that they wanted specifically to work with you because they thought that you were very good at what you do. So what was it like working with those two guys? I mean, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you right now. That was my favorite tag team of all time. So.
Yeah, those two guys are exceptional human beings, and they took, they knew when we came in, we were green. They came from Nelson and Gene, and so after the match, they'd critique us, and they were pretty hard on us, but it was for good reason, and we welcomed it. But when there was it was basically an exodus. Everybody's going up to WWF, and at the same time, Vince had called Nelson. So look, we're trying to expand on TV. Your guys are awesome, but we'd like to get them up on our thing. And Nelson asked us, say, look, you boys want to go to WWF? And for me, that was the place to be. I was like, yes. Right. He said, but you might not be welcome back into WCW, NWA. I said, it's worth it to me. Yeah. Because in 80, I think it was beginning of 88, we went up there probably, but that's when Andre had just finished doing the Princess Bride movie, Princess Bride. Jesse Ventura just finished The Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Kerry Von Erich was the guy that I wanted to be like. I saw him on TV in Texas. And those three guys were in the locker room. We went the first day. I'm like, I was just like a little kid. And my friends are like, stop staring, you stupid. Like, man, this is great. We're here. Believe it.
So what was the outside of that? What was the difference? Like, obviously you said I think it was pretty much everybody's dream from maybe the 80s on to that is the goal. WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. The
difference for our level was job guys, enhancement talent, champion makers. We've been called everything, but we were paid per TV, $150 NWA. Vince increased that. They never fed you the NWA. There was a buffet of food when you went to do television because you're taping 3 or 4 usually 4 weeks in a row, and 4 in a can. You're doing a whole month in one day. But he had food all day long. I'm like, this is great. They flew us up there. They gave us per diem money, so we were treated like, stars, even though we were. But the most impactful thing I took away from that first trip is that Vince saw us walking in, and it was George South, me, and David Eisen, a couple of the guys, and he's like, hey, George, hey, Tommy, David, thank you for coming up here. We really appreciate you guys willing to work. I'm like, after it was over, like, that guy knows our name. Can you believe it? But when Arn and Tully got up there, I remember seeing them in the locker room, and when I can't remember what town they were in, but it's like, we're so glad to see you guys. We're hopeful they'll match us up with you guys because we've worked with you before, so you know how we work. And they knew we'd put them over like champions, let them do whatever they needed to do and do it very crisp. And they found out we had the match. It was me and Bob Emery. And Arn said, man, thank God. We're so happy we got you guys. He said, hey, we're going to crush it. I said, that's our job, but that's our role. Let's go out there and do it well. And they got a big pop because he said they're all up. When they came in the dressing room, all the tag teams were like, wait a second. You got the Rougeaus, you got the Bulldogs. All of a sudden, there's just a bunch of tag teams in the Pride and hey, who are you guys? And he said, we had to come in and make a statement. And you guys helped with that. So they did their own thing, but they were strong. And Bobby Heenan's their manager was awesome.
That was a great pair. I mean, at that time, WWF had such an awesome tag team division, right? I mean, there's so many great teams there. Did you team with Rusty Riddle there, if I remember correctly?
Probably so. I actually lived with him for a while.
Yeah.
But we've done, I think we tagged a few times in WWF as well as NWA, WCW, all stuff. But Rusty lives, I'm in Greer, South Carolina, and he lives in Travelers Rest, which is like 10 minutes away. Yeah. We didn't realize it for a couple of years that he's been like that close, and we hooked up recently, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I remember seeing him, like I said, I mentioned before we went on air, South Atlantic Pro, and I remember seeing him in there, and then one day seeing him on WWE TV. I was like, what's going on here? Like, I was like very excited to see that guy on my television on another
Nelson had opened up Atlantic Coast Wrestling the same time.
Yeah.
Right around the same time we got to go to WWF, and he said, we're going to put you guys over, so I really don't want you on TV that much with them, but I know you need to make money, so Rusty was part of ACW, and around that same time, about a year into it, Ken Shamrock was living there with us and working out, and he about the same time that he wanted to go to the first UFC thing when he got voice crazy and all that, so he took a different trajectory, but he went to South Atlantic first as Vince Torelli.
Yep,
I remember that. Tommy Seabolt. I don't know if you remember seeing him.
I do remember. I remember you guys were TNT at the time, correct?
Yep. And love that guy to death. He just passed away last year.
Yeah,
got a great family, and what a legacy he left. But he was a former cop. I'm a former airborne, so we had the same mindset. Police and military are wired the same. So we clicked, and Nelson saw that, and it just worked out as far as a tag team.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you guys ended up capturing the tag team titles there as well. From did you win it from the German Troopers or the Stormtroopers, or is it?
Yep, Chuck Coates and Chuck Smith.
Yep. Yeah, I remember. I liked the Helmet Hessler character a lot back in the day.
That's my buddy. He's Special Forces at Fort Bragg. Chuck Smith, and he did the whole. Yes, this is good. Yes, we will crush you, you puny Americans.
That's all. No, he was really good. I remember watching him in Herb Abrams' UWF. I know you ended up stepping up there as well, didn't you? In UWF?
Yeah, I think I did 5 or 6 matches. I know I did Paul Orndorff and Barry Horowitz.
Yeah,
those two tapings I did with him.
What do you think about working with Barry Horowitz? He's actually the first guest I ever had here on the podcast 3 years ago, and I have to say it was probably. Yeah, he's awesome.
He is such a fun guy to be around, and he's a technician. All his moves are real, but he's real, and that gimmick's perfect. I mean, he just probably wrestled him a handful of times, but every time was a fun. Like he wore a watch. He'd be talking real fast. Hey Rick, hold on, I gotta take my vitamins. My thing went off. Hold on, I'll be right back. He'd take his vitamins. Okay, so where were we talking about? He just got a lot of energy.
Yeah. I want to ask you this kind of a rare name from South Atlantic Pro, which I don't ever know whatever really happened to this guy. I've only seen a handful of matches there. I've seen a handful of matches in Japan and nothing else. But do you remember anything about Greg Bobchick at all?
Oh yeah, he was Chuck Smith's good friend from Michigan, and
Oh yeah,
he came down. He was a power lifter, bodybuilder, and we all lived together in a house, bunch of single idiot wrestlers. We call it the Rhino Ranch. You know, we'd train together, eat together, and he could have got a push, I think, but excuse me.
Yep.
He had to move back from Michigan. I want to say it was something with his family. And,
okay.
Chuck still talks to him, but I haven't seen or talked to him in years. But yeah, he's a good fella.
Yeah, out of the matches that I've seen from him, like he had all the potential in the world, and it's just kind of very short-lived. You know what I mean? Career. So I was always wondering.
My buddy Bob Emery that wrestled in
Remember
the
him?
first
Yeah.
match with Tully and Arn, and he wasn't consistent enough on the pay, and he's originally from Ohio, and he moved back home, and he's like one of those fitness trainers, cross trainers. He looks fantastic. You know, me and him are both just about to be 60, and he looks unbelievable, but he's got a large family. He looks very happy, sounds happy when I talk to him. It's just back then the consistency of how much money can I live off of, and if you're single, you can kind of gut out those times that are hard. You know, TV tapings are not a lot of money, but we're hanging on for that. One day we're gonna get this big break.
I always thought that you probably should have deserved a break. Honestly, in my opinion, you had the look, and I thought you were, like I said, you had the look, and I thought that you were actually very good in the ring. I mean, you had a trading card made of yourself for those 1987 NWA Wonderama cards you had.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Actually, I had 3 cards. Can you believe that?
Did you? No, really?
It was because we were green. We really, literally just started TV, and the Wonderama was the company, and the cards were sequential 1 through 800 or whatever.
Yeah.
And Ric Flair was number 1, but one of my cards was number 2. And some of the boys, how'd you get number 2? I'm like, dude, I didn't even know I was getting these things. This is crazy. We were doing a television at Winthrop Coliseum down in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and we had to line up, and it said, they're going to take some photos, you guys. Just be patient. So we took all these photos, doing all the standing there.
Yeah. And the wrestling poses. Yeah.
Yeah. And next thing you know, I had 3 cards, and some of the main guys only got 2. But I have no idea why, but it's a blessing. And my son, I have a son who's 16 now, and for a long time, he didn't believe me that I wrestled. You're too fat and old. You never be a wrestler. I said, yeah, I got wrestling cards. He goes, that's not you. And one day, he put 2 and 2 together. I got my military tattoo on my left bicep, and he was looking at it one day. He's like, I guess it was you, Dad.
Did you ever show him videos at all? Ever?
Yeah. And after that, I did, because at first he didn't believe me, but he gets to laugh. He tells his friends, and they're like, oh, yeah, my dad's not just fat and old. He used to be cool.
That's awesome. So you ended up back in the WCW, I guess, in 1993, and it seems like you had a bunch of wins on like dark matches and stuff. So I guess you and was it Mike Winter defeated Chick Donovan and Rip Rogers? Do you remember this at all?
Yeah, it comes back. I mean, in 8 years, there's a lot of stuff I did, but it was a blessing. Anytime they said they would go over, but in the house matches too back then, the best part was those matches were TVs like 3-4 minutes. House matches, they tell you some matches, gay kid 20 minutes. I do Nelson up in Tennessee, one of the ones that Jim Cornette was at, and he wanted to do a match. I had to go 35-40 minutes, and Nelson said, if I can do it, son, you better be able to keep up with me. And that's what it conditioned us for, is to be able to go that long, because I had one tour of Japan in 92 was the absolute best time of my life. But those matches with those guys are always 30-40 minutes long. Sometimes they're shorter, but if you don't you're not in cardio shape, you will blow up.
What was it like in Japan outside of that? I mean, it's a kind of a harder style, I guess. More stiff, as you would say, as some would say. So
it's great. They call it snug. Watch out, it's snug. Because most of them are ex-sumos, but man, you go into these buildings sold out, and they throw the streamers down. Like Stan Hansen, he was like the man. So when he go out to a match, it would be like 10 minutes of just raining streamers. I remember I went out on like the third or fourth day of that week and wrestled in one of the medium-sized houses, and a few people threw some streamers. Like, that's pretty cool. I got some streamers. That's right.
That's awesome. And obviously in 1987 was Bill Watts UWF was merged with Crockett Promotions, if you remember.
Yep.
And you got a championship match for the UWF title against Terry Taylor. So what do you remember about this?
I love Terry. He wasn't afraid to let me try stuff because he trusted me, but he was just a lot of fun to be in the ring with. He was always cutting jokes, and I was trying to crack up because he's just very fluid, just an outstanding worker. But he tried to make me shine as much as I tried to make him shine, and he was just a good heel, I thought.
I think he was good. I mean, in any position that you would put him in, really. I mean, he was very good as a babyface, but he would also be like a very good arrogant heel as well. So it's like he could sell it either way.
Oh yeah, and people love to hate that guy because he was good looking, and he didn't just have that. He could do that move, and people were like, "Boo, you suck."
Yeah. I'm just going to ask you about some random matches here, if you don't mind. So there are random guys you worked with. What about Captain Mike Rotunda?
Mike he's a gem. He's a true collegiate wrestler, but just an outstanding guy. He was always very helpful to give advice when we asked him, "Hey, can you tell us how we did? Just critique us." And he's like, "Sure." And but he's just a nice guy. But he's all business in the ring. Yeah. And I remember one time he got mad at one of the jobbers on our side. I can't remember what happened, but he just punched him in the face and knocked him down. I was like, "What?" Mild-mannered Mike. It must take a lot to really get him going.
What about Dr. Death Steve Williams?
He was a freight train. He was one of the I was tagged up with Danny Spivey in Japan, so it was always against Terry Gordy and Steve Williams.
Man, must have been brutal.
Oh yeah, but he's just a fun guy to be around. But he's snug too because he's just such a big guy. And one of the matches we had in Japan, he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna throw you in the corner and put your foot up, but give me the boot." And I put my foot up, and the whole line just let your leg relax, so you're not actually kick him in the face. And he ran in so hard into my foot, and my knee hit my nose. We both had bloody noses, and he got mad. He goes, "Stiff!" He kept grabbing me and stiff, and he picked me upside down, ran me across the ring, and hit me in the turnbuckle. My hip hurt so bad. And after the match, he goes, "I'm sorry, kid, were you stiff?" I'm like, and Terry goes, "Brother, you ran him over. He had nothing else to do but look at him. He broke his nose too." But I flew back from Japan. That's a 12-hour flight, and it just killing me. I'm just taking ibuprofen and drinking cocktails, and I go to see my chiropractor. He's like, "Lay on the table," and he's looking at me. He goes, and he twists me. All of a sudden, pow! I was like, "What the?" He goes, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel great." He goes, Your hip's been dislocated. When did this happen?" I said, "I don't know, like 3 or 4 days ago in Japan." He goes, "I don't know how you're walking around." I go, "I don't either."
Wow.
But he was so mad. I mean, he picked me up. I felt like a little kid, and he ran across the ring and just shoved me in the turnbuckle. And the place popped, though. All the Japanese fans are like, "Whoa!"
He was completely over in Japan. They were probably one of the top tag teams of that era in Japan.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah. He just had that look, Man Mountain Dean kind of look, this big beard and just burly.
Right. What about working with the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane?
Oh, love them guys. Sweet Bobby, man. We lost him last year. Actually, the first match I had with them was Dennis Condrey.
Oh, really?
Bobby. And then when Stan came in, and Stan lived not far from where we had our little Rhino Ranch, so we found out he'd hang out at this one club in Charlotte, and he realized we were a goofball, so he'd come over and hang out with us a little pre-time before we go to the club. And he's like, once we were there, he goes, let me do my thing. We stay away, but just a fun guy. But they're both serious about the business. Jim Cornette is the best wrestling mind there is to me.
I'm 100% with you on that one. I'm a huge fan of his.
But he started that little song. Tommy Seabolt. That's what put me on the radar. Because everywhere I went, he would say it, and then fans finally just started singing it. So he gave me street cred. And I think that's. I took a couple of tennis rackets for him because of it. So those were stiff.
Yeah. I'm just gonna ask you a few more. Really. What about Al Perez, Larry Zbyszko?
Both great guys. Al Perez is, obviously had that physique, but just very smooth, very fluid, very light to work with. Zbyszko, man, he's a machine. He can wrestle. He'd be back in the locker room smoking like, okay, kid, we're on next. You ready? I'm like, are you? But he can go. He can talk. He does great interviews. Just fun to be around. I
thought he did great interviews. Did you ever see when he won the AWA world title? He just did this amazing promo after, as Bill Apter was interviewing him. So it was just awesome.
One of the classics.
Yeah. Another great tag team, the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton, Tommy Rogers.
Oh gosh, yeah, they were over in Japan with us, and we worked a lot with them in the NWA, and I think we lost Tommy 4 or 5 years ago. But I still see Bobby occasionally. They have those wrestling reunion things, and talk to him. And he's been a couple of bouts with cancer, and he's overcome. He's he's a fighter, but they're both just excellent. And they were over in Japan. You talk about baby faces. Everything they did, the crowd. But they gave us, me and Spivey, obviously he's over, but they gave us a lot in that match. One of the matches we had in Japan that was actually recorded, but great workers. Their timing was perfect. I mean, they were so well in sync with each other.
I thought Tommy was great. Bobby's probably one of the nicest people in the world. I mean, Absolutely. Literally, I speak with him online every now and again. He's like I said, he does like a live feed or whatever. And, the current NWA brings him in every so often as a guest and stuff like that. So it's really great to see him on TV, with that.
Absolutely.
Do you watch wrestling at all today? I know a lot of guys don't anymore. So
rarely. Like David Isley, one of the guys I was in the business with, we just had dinner the other night. He lives here in town. But he'll talk about stuff, and we're like, our match coming up, we'll watch it. Or back when we still had friends that were in the office, WWE, when they come to town, we go down to the building, but all those people have since moved on or whatever. But every once in a while, but most of my son doesn't even watch it. I'm like, he's not impressed with it.
Well, my son did, and that's kind of how I got back into it, because I was married to my first wife. I kind of lost interest, and then met my second wife, and her son, my stepson, was really into it at the time. So I probably, was out of it for like 5 years. And then now he just has nothing to do with it. He does not care whatsoever. Now I just watch it a lot. And now I started this podcast, since. So
that's cool. That your perspective is how the business from when you watch the 80s to now is. Yeah. Are there things that you like and things you don't like about the business compared to back in the 80s?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that I don't particularly care for. A lot of my stuff ends up like on fast forward mode. You know what I mean? And then I sit there and I will watch certain things, certain guys that I really like a lot. It's just a completely different thing. I just had a very good conversation with one of my friends who's a referee locally here, and about how it's just a lot of the stuff we watch is we just go back to the 80s and 70s from when we grew up and putting stuff on, It's a lot of YouTube and streaming networks of all the old stuff.
Yeah. And there's I don't know if you heard of Powertown Toys is getting ready to launch a whole line of 80s wrestlers. Steve Rosenthal, the guy that created the Evel Knievel. If you go online and on YouTube, just look up Powertown Toys, but the first 6 wrestlers are Magnum TA, Greg Gagne, Kerry Bonner.
I'm trying to think of who else. I know exactly what you're saying. Yep, Bruiser Brody. Yeah.
He's got a contract, and he's the word is they're going to include some of us guys at our level because of that era. Really? In television. It was so great. That's his enthusiasm. He said to me that was when he was with Hasbro when they launched the first little mini toys, and he said to me that's the greatest era of wrestling. That was when storytelling was happening. 70s and 80s, and he said so we're trying to capture those guys from that period who never had a chance to have any kind of action figures because toys didn't really get launched until like the 90s. He said it's a shame, so he wants to capture that whole thing. So he's got like 200 wrestlers signed to contracts.
Oh,
to
that's
do
awesome.
licensing rights to do action figures and other merchandising things. So to your point, I think everybody, I'll watch old matches on YouTube and stuff, and it's just, there's nothing like it compared to today. I'm not knocking the guys who are in the business now, but it's just such a different animal.
They're tremendous athletes today. A lot of them. Some of the stuff I don't necessarily agree with. Some of the stunts or the danger that they put themselves in, such as going through tables and light tubes and certain things like that. More of an old school fan where I like to sit there and watch a traditional wrestling match.
Yeah, when we were taught, a lot of people call it boring, but Gene Anderson is a heel. They work a body part for 45 minutes in a match. The heel would get a big comeback, but the fans would think they're like ripping your arm off the whole time. And, the baby face is sold. And one of the first few matches I went to with Nelson just to watch while we were in training, the Rock and Roll Express, to me, were the top baby faces. I saw grown women crying, thinking these guys are actually getting killed. And just the emotions that come out of them. I mean, it's just the way they sold and the way, but when they came back, it was just this huge pop. I mean, that's what's lost to me, is just getting the emotional part of the crowd engaged into the story,
Yeah, absolutely. There are some times that this does happen. Like, I'll be at an independent show here in Connecticut, and there's certain fans that just really get wrapped into it and literally will yell at the heels like it was back in the old days. You know what I mean? It's kind of enjoyable when people get wrapped up in it, and we have to tell them, hey, guys, calm down a little bit, or the fans,
To me, that's a good heel, because Ole Anderson was, he got stabbed here in Greenville, South Carolina.
Really?
As a heel, some guy through the crowd stuck him with a knife, and it obviously wasn't enough to kill him, but it just made everybody realize that that's real heat. And if people were cheering him on, he'd cuss them. I don't like you. You better not like me. Just bully to him. This is living out his gimmick, basically. I don't want you to like me. My point is to get you to hate me.
Yeah.
There's always those kids that love bad guys anyway, but
I'm one of them, It's like I always was, but now as an adult, I like who I like. I think once I was into wrestling for about a good 4 or 5 years, and I just started to, it wasn't me just liking baby faces. It was like I would like whoever I thought was a very good wrestler. You know what I mean? So it just turned into me just liking certain guys. That's it. It didn't matter whether if they were a really good heel, I'd probably like them a lot. One of my first, when I realized that, say, somebody was like Ravishing Rick Rude was a great wrestler, I just sat there one day and I was like, damn, that guy is really good. And it just clicked from there on. That I don't necessarily have to like the Hulk Hogan's of the world. I could like whoever the hell I want, in a way. Pardon my language. So yeah. Yeah.
Rick Rude was he was a wild man. He was super strong too. He did arm wrestling contests, but it turns out that Rude, Henning, Nikita, Animal, they were all from Minnesota. They were all buddies, and all from a close knit part of. I mean, Ric Flair, Minnesota, all close together. And remember, we were in Toronto. I was doing one of the first house shows for WWF. I wrestled Coco Beware, then Iron Mike Sharp on that tour. Lady Poffo got hurt. That's when I got a break. I started doing house shows, and that's when I got some real opportunities to show the office that I could actually work.
Right.
We were in Toronto, and afterwards we were staying at the Howard Johnson up there. That was back in the day. They had the big bar down there, and I'm the young guy. I'm following all the superstars just hanging around near. I'm like, I'm with them. And some guy came up to him, was talking smack. You guys think you're all this and that, big muscles. And Rick Rude smoked when he did drugs, and he was standing right in front of that guy, and they're all sitting on bar stools with the bartenders behind him, and he took a big drag of his cigarette, and he just looked at him and blew smoke real hard into his face. As soon as that guy closed his eyes, he grabbed him by the neck and just choked him out with one hand and dropped him, and he pointed at his friends. Who's next? That went. And I was rooming with Boss Man. He goes, Tommy, it's time for us to get out of here.
You just mentioned Iron Mike Sharp. What was it like working with him? I think that he is he's a legend in the business. He had a really great time. He wrestled Bob Backlund at the Garden. For the title back in his
I think a lot of people missed that back then, and I didn't really know much about him until I started working for the company, but he just a very ritualistic, if you will. He before he went in a match, he'd shower. He put baby oil all over him. He'd sit there and do squats, working out, trying to get ready for the match. And it was a televised match from Maple Leaf Gardens that I had with him. I was on a tour I just told you about, and it was probably like 8 or 10 minutes, but he was that heel. You know, he did the and he always had the leather wrist thing, so he acted like he loaded. He like take something out, and that's what he did to finish on me. You know, the screw, but people hated that guy too.
Yeah, man. I saw him wrestle Jimmy Snuka at a fair right here in Wallingford, Connecticut, in this town that I live in now. And it was always I thought it was awesome to see him in person on like such a level, like an independent level, as opposed to I grew up watching him on TV. You know what I mean? In WWF and seeing him in the old New Haven Coliseum. It was just awesome because everybody would just walk right up to the ring at the end of the night and talk to a lot of the wrestlers. So it was like he actually was a very nice guy.
And he was, most people don't realize I didn't until I stood next to him. He was a big man.
Yes.
And I had to do a full Nelson on or get him from behind. I couldn't barely get my hands on it. I laughed when I watched the video of it, but you can see my hands not really touching. And he's just going, he's just slowly, when he breaks it away, he's just so big. I mean, you couldn't really get your arms around that guy. It's so massive. Yeah, but it's on YouTube. You'll laugh if you see it. I mean, he's just
I actually came across it yesterday because I read an article on you that on Slam. There was a video clip on there of that, so I got the chance to watch a little bit of it. Yeah, man, he had huge shoulders.
Yeah, this is a big dude, and this is the back end of his career, and he's still in great shape. I mean, yeah, it was a surprise when he died. I was surprised. He's Woodbridge, New Jersey, and I grew up in Woodbridge, Virginia. So when we started talking, we thought we were from the same town, and the more we talked, like, no, we're in different states.
It's kind of funny that you said it because I said I grew up in New Haven, but I lived in the suburb of it, which was called Woodbridge, Connecticut.
No way.
So, I swear to God.
Wow.
So that's kind of funny that you mentioned that. And at one time, Dr. D. David Schultz was a resident of Woodbridge, Connecticut as well. So growing up, yep. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I remember as a kid. They always had pictures of him hanging in the local gas station because they knew him very well. So, it was awesome growing up there.
He was a big name back then.
Yeah. Yeah. This was probably like 86, 87, probably after he left WWF, I think. But he still lived there, Yeah. So you ended up going back to WCW, I guess. What was it, like 91-ish about that?
Yeah. Around there, yeah. And my hair was starting to fall out, so I cut the mullet off and just kind of changed the look. I grew a goatee, and they wanted to say, well, we'll try your more of a heel match on TV and house shows. And at that point, people, like you said, either like you, it doesn't matter if you're heel or babyface. And I wasn't really I don't think I was a good heel. That's not my personality, but I go out there and try, but went back, and it's just from that point all the way to 94. The business was trending down. It just wasn't as fun to me anymore. I was in 94, I was 31, and it just, my last show was the last tour was in Dominican Republic, and I had to work hacksaw down there, and Snuka was on the car, Barbarian, and I just didn't have any fun at all. And I just thought, I got to do something with my life. And my father had committed suicide in 94. And that's why I decided to leave completely, because he always told me, you can do so much more with your life. I'm like, dude, I'm on television, Dad. I got girlfriends. And he says, that's not important. It's 15 minutes of fame. You got to do something with your life. And I just did some soul searching. And I called both offices. I said, I appreciate all the opportunities I've had over the years, but I'm done. And they said, you sure? I said, yeah. I said, thank you very much. It was very underwhelming, but it was just, and I went into radio business.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I heard that you were, I guess, a classic rock DJ for quite some time.
Yeah, I went to a local broadcasting school. It's kind of like the Nelson Royal era. We had to go to wrestling school. I went to a local broadcasting school, and then timing has been the blessing in my life. I went out of that school, and the local rock station was doing a promotion at the bar. I was bouncing with my buddy's bar, and I was working the front, and they all came in. We're with the radio station, we're VIP. I'm like, whatever. I still got to check your ID. When the program director was standing there, I said, dude, I I'm in this broadcast is called, I want to get an internship. Yeah. Here's my card. Call me Monday. And I call him Monday. He's like, who is this? I said, you gave me your card. So I went down there and talked to him, and I think he put me on an intern. But John Boy and Billy is the morning show in Charlotte. They were syndicated on over 150 affiliates. And at that time it was the monster flamethrower morning show. And Tommy got a part-time job out of the internship to a full-time job within about a year. And I was with them for 15 years, but just because it's the entertainment business on a different level. You know, John Boy and Billy is big down in the South, but they had all the NASCAR drivers based out of Charlotte. They had A-list celebrities on their show. So it was a great segue for me to transition, but without doing the bumps. So, but I also, as a promotions director, I also did a weekend shift. But the funny part is that when I went to talk to the program director, Tom, we're going to use got to get your radio name. What do you think? I said, well, I've been on television for a few years in this area. As Tommy Angel, he goes, sounds gay, Tom. I don't think we're going to do it. He never watched wrestling, so I never talked about it after that. And then we're just recently, he's like, dude, you never told me you like really wrestle. I'm like, yeah, I did. You just didn't listen. So my radio name was Tommy Lee. But that was a lot of fun, just playing rock tunes on the weekends and classic rock that really rocks.
I did have a radio show myself as well, like
cool.
Kind of like a college radio station, sort of freeform radio. And I got to tell you, man, it just ended up when my partner, who actually had the link to the radio station, moved to California because of his musical opportunities. The thing just basically went out the tubes, and that's how this podcast actually started. Because my intentions were to start a radio show, another radio show on my own, put it on internet radio, and somehow that's when I wouldn't say rediscovered wrestling, but I basically kind of started going to a lot of shows locally again, and just said, I'm just going to start a wrestling podcast, and it's been 4 years. So
that's awesome.
So I always, one of my things was I would spin vinyl, and this is currently like modern times. And I'd bring CDs. I would do it was just a lot of fun to be able to play whatever I wanted. It was cool. I'm sure you didn't really have that much freedom, I'm guessing, because it was
well, Saturday night I could deviate. You'd have a playlist based on we were number one rock station and the number one station in the market, but on the weekends I could pick live versions of the artists. It was a very tight set list, but I'd have some freedom, and he always had his radio on, so if I did something or said something, he'd get in and see the hotline ring and like, yes sir, Tom, we got to talk. But it's fun because my favorite part was people calling in, just talking to people.
Radio is fun. It's just it's something, it's just very fun. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just playing tunes, interacting with people and such,
and they pay you. That's the icing on the cake.
There's that too, I grew up.
I met my wife is in the radio business, and she stayed longer. I did 15 years. She did probably 25, and she did 5 years in TV, and just finally got burned out. But she saw pictures of me. I started dating her after wrestling, and I showed her a picture. She's like, "Ooh, I would have never dated you back then."
She didn't like the hair.
No, the mullet was not her thing.
I mean, it was the hair, the style of the time in 1980s. Yeah,
that was cool back then.
My son, he lives in Ohio now, but he was like, Dad, I'm going to get a haircut, right? Because I guess he lives with his mom. And one of the things he said, I think I'm going to get a mullet. I said, dude, the hair's been out of style for like 30 years, more than 30 years. I don't think you want to do that. But it's funny that style has come back somewhat. A lot of people are wearing it. So it's crazy. I know. It's crazy. So what are you up to today?
I'm in the beer business right now.
Really?
When I got out of the radio business, it was right when my wife was pregnant with our son. It was same thing with the radio business. It was I reached the end that I wasn't having fun. The kid they brought in to be my boss was I say kid, he was much younger than I was, but my salary was greater than his. This is when corporate radio just started buying up all the properties. Right. I thought, man, my days are numbered. I'm going to leave on my terms. So I just said I resign, and I found a position. I've been volunteering Big Brothers Big Sisters as a big brother, and they had a position opening for vice president of partnership development, basically trying to get grants and partnerships with corporate community and raise money and connect them in that way. And man, that was probably the most fulfilling thing I ever did in my life. But 2008, the economy collapsed. Right. It was like a slow moving train. So we had to keep our caseworkers. Those are the important people. They matched the children with mentors. So my position was the least important at that time. And I had to make a decision. I said, look, let's eliminate mine. But I was out of work for, 18 months. I couldn't get a job to save my life on my resume. I couldn't get a call back. And one day I ran across an old friend. He said, hey, man, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm looking for work. He was in the beer business. He said, we have a position as a swing guy. I said, I don't know what it is, but I want it. I went down there and filled out an application and got it. And it was just basically a sales trainee, and selling beer is the easiest thing. The products sell themselves.
Pretty much.
And I've been in it for almost 15 years. I'm hoping to retire in a couple of years from work itself. But I can't believe they pay me. It's the easiest business right now. I'm a category manager, space planning. So when you walk into a grocery store or convenience store, you see all the products on shelves. Yep. I create the planograms. It's kind of a picture of how things are supposed to be set, and it's based on analytics of the sales. And if you had told me back in high school that beer and math actually go together, I'd have tried harder. But it's crazy. But you go to a grocery store chain and you say these products go here because this, and this. And you're like, okay. So I sit at my desk and play with the software planogram with putting all the products where they are, listen to music or podcasts. So I have to check yours out and listen to it while I'm working.
Yeah. Are you a beer drinker yourself?
I am.
Yeah. Same here. I love beer and I like trying new beers, experimenting with new beers. It's just really good to just try it because there's so many great beers out there now. I mean, I know IPAs are really popular now, and it took me
probably the strongest style. Yeah.
Yeah. It took me years to actually appreciate it. So I tried one last year, and then it's pretty much became my one of my favorite styles of beer, I guess you could say. I've gone through phases as to what I've liked over the years, but for some reason, once I tried that, I always felt that they were bitter and too crazy tasting and stuff. And then there was just this one particular one that really got me. So I liked it a lot.
The brands is up there in your area is strong.
Yeah, we have a local brewery not outside of my job, but 10 minutes from my job called Counterweight in Cheshire, Connecticut. And they make this one called Crucial Mass, which is just, it's become my favorite, really. It's a double IPA. So other than that,
probably 9% ABV at least.
Yeah. 9 yeah. I've had ones that were stronger. I've tried triples. There's one that's kind of out of Hartford, a Heart Beast. That was a triple IPA, and literally had 2 of them. And I was like, whoa. It's sometimes the stronger they are, they hit you a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah, so. They'll blow you out. Yeah, I came down to Greenville almost 12 years ago to help my friend rebrand the wholesaler. We have an Anheuser-Busch. We're an Anheuser-Busch wholesaler. We have an equity agreement with them, but our portfolio goes. We do craft beers. We do waters, wines, juices. We now start selling liquor, and we sell about 6 million cases a year. But we have a local brewery too. This guy right here, Brewery 85, is here in Greenville, South Carolina. And he actually was a independent worker, did a lot of local shows, and we went to a meeting one time with him, and I'm sitting there and I had his hat on, and I'm sitting there and you can always tell when someone's looking at you, you're uncomfortable.
You feel it.
They keep staring at me. It's kind of weird. So after the meeting was over, I looked over. He goes, "Hey, Tommy, did you ever wrestle?" I'm like, "What? Get out of here." He goes, "Don't you wrestle?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I thought that was you." And he's blah, 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 Tommy Angel. I used to wrestle, but he's a great guy. But he's got the brewing tanks in his local brewery, and he's got the big fat head of Ric Flair, Macho Man. He's got Ninja Turtles. He goes, "It's good luck to name your tank." So this one's the Flair, that one's Macho, and he's got Raphael, Leonardo, and the other turtles. So he's got some great local beers, and but our Anheuser-Busch bought Wicked Weed. That's big in the South. I know they're trying to get the brand to go up north. We've got Bell's, which is out of Michigan. We've got New Belgium, was out of Colorado, now in North Carolina. So we've got a Stone out of San Diego, California. But on any given day, we probably have about 517,000, 520,000 cases on the floor. And if we didn't get a delivery for 18 days, all that would be sold out. That's how fast we were, like 500,000 cases a month. It just, boom. And it's Joe Biden proof. I don't care how bad the economy is. People still want their beer.
Yes, that's one thing. I make sure I have a fridge in this office. I always make sure that it's full. So, everybody wants it.
I could tell you were sophisticated, Rick.
So, is there anything else you want to throw out there? Actually, I never asked you about working Smoky Mountain. So, if you have an extra
that's
minute,
the one that Cornette had hooked us up with, and that was a lot of fun. Gosh, we had that one guy. I just saw a match I had with him. He used to carry around the big chicken bone or some kind of big bone.
Is that the Moon Dog?
Yeah, Moon Dog.
Yeah,
he's hilarious at the work. He's kind of like a redneck Jimmy Valiant. He did all goofy. That was fun. That was Tim Horner was on that with us. Brad Armstrong.
I think all the Armstrongs were there. Bullet Bob and I think Road Dog before he was Road Dog, whatever was there. And I think they were all there.
They were, and just a fun atmosphere. The crowd was great because it was a lot of obviously through Tennessee and Kentucky, and I don't remember doing a whole lot of shows. I know I wrestled Nikita Koloff one time there, and he actually gave me a pretty good match. Him and I are really good friends, and Lex Luger. They have that's the joke in the wrestling business from back then. You either die or you find Christ. And Nick was always a good guy to me and kind of mentored me as his wife had died of lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, probably around 80, 89. He retired in 93 into 93 as a millionaire. And then I walked away from the business as a thousandaire, but we both, our paths kind of went the same way. And, following Jesus, and him and Lex run a thing called Man Camp twice a year. And it's a 5-day event for men. And it will absolutely transform your life. So I help him with guys, and from my church, try to go there, and it's life changing. And people from all over the country. Some guys came over from United Kingdom, but Man Camp, look it up. Nikita Koloff and Lex Luger.
I follow Nikita and Lex on Twitter, and I see them post a lot. Nikita's especially puts it out there on Twitter quite a bit, and I believe that he write a book of some sort. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I believe that he does push out his faith on Twitter, which
he does. He does. Yeah. He's actually an ordained minister, and him and Lex both have are strong Christians background in faith in Jesus Christ, and I'll tell you, it's what changed my life because I saw that was one of the reasons I left in '94 too.
Nope, you're still there.
Okay, I forgot what I said. It threw me off because your screen went blank.
Nope, throw in the 94. Yeah. You there? Uh-oh. No. Tommy, you there? Damn.
It won't happen to me. And,
okay, there you go. All right.
And then after Brian Pillman, Kurt Hennig was the one that hit me hard because he always told me, "Kid, keep your head on straight." He was one of my mentors too. He always said, "Look, you got talent. Just hang in there, but don't do all this stupid stuff." And sure enough, I remember he said, "Man, I got a house show coming up." He'd already kind of walked away from the business overall. He got 5 kids. So I'm doing a double shot down in Florida. Said, make some money and get home. And he died of an overdose in a hotel room down there. And that crushed me. I was like, man. So there's more to life than the business itself because people get sucked in. And, a lot of these guys, Brian Pillman, he just same thing. He just between the drugs, the steroids, they create enlarged hearts.
Yeah.
When you're doing recreational drugs, your heart can't keep up with all that. And it's just but don't have much to show for it, but it was a great time in my life.
Right. Is there anything that you want to throw out there, or you want to let anybody know how they can get in touch with Tommy Angel?
Well, there's a Facebook page that I didn't create that's out there, and I won't get any messages on that. But Tom Barrett Jr. at yahoo.com. It's all lowercase, TOMBARRETTJR at yahoo.com. I still get people that find me somehow and send me stuff to autograph. I'm happy to sign it, send it back. As long as they include a postage.
Right.
There's stuff to send it back, I'll do it. But it's just, to me, if people remember me from that far long ago, it was only 8 years of my life. It's humbling, and it's nice to remember, those memories and sign stuff for people. So
I want to thank you for coming on here very much. I had a really great time talking to you. So
I did too, Rick. Thank you for having me.